That was intense.
That was hardcore.
That
Welcome
was.
to What is Doug Reading? I'm your host, Alejandro Rojas. Of course, this is an open minds thing, so that means you got to see my face and hear me. And we're here with Douglas Smythe. Hello, Mr. Smythe.
Greetings. Good to be here. How you doing?
So, good. I wanted to share. Look at these. I made these other videos. Maybe the audience can tell me which one they like. So there's that cool one at the beginning. Here's the next one. Ready?
Yep. What's not to like? It has a cube in it. I mean, come on.
Here's another one.
Like, I like that, the 8-bit. What about mine? What about the ones I sent you? I sent you a couple, didn't I?
Oh, damn it. Yes, you did. But those are special for next week. I'm saving those because I wanted to plug them first. I wanted to plug them first. So we'll plug them this week.
Plug our intro?
Yeah. So we're going to have new exciting intros custom made by Doug that we'll have next week. So now people can be prepared for this whole week. They're going to be on edge.
Preparing themselves. Yeah, no, I don't blame them.
Exactly. That was the plan. Oh my gosh. I've just been swamped. I've been super busy. In fact, for those of you joining us live, of which there might be a couple, sorry for the last minuteness of this, but just a lot going on. And thank you for joining live if you are. Of course, all the rest of you can watch the replay, and I hope you enjoy.
Yes.
So the first thing we usually do is talk about what we've been up to this week. So I noticed you had another email out because you're busy as well with usually launching new products.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did. I only have the case for what we just launched this week. And for, no one outside of the wet shaving world, or the hobby, as I like to call it, or the craft, as we also call it,
outside the craft,
would really understand all that's going on with this. But maybe they would. I don't know. If you use an alum block.
Can I guess?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to guess. So you have a kind of, it's a manly alien thing in the right, but maybe a male succubus type of thing. But as opposed to a normally...
That'd be an incubus.
And he's using the aluminum as some kind of radio. I guess that's how he gets into your psyche to arouse you, because otherwise, really, by looks alone, that is not going to do it.
I'm taking this away now. Yes, that's exactly what it is. Actually, I'm surprised you nailed it. I mean, it just goes to show you how much information we provide inside our illustrations here. But
are you serious? I was right.
No, you were way off. But do you even have an alum block?
I had the stick thing that you put on to stop bleeding.
Styptic pencil. It's a little bit different. Different ingredients. Similar family, same family, but a little different. This is potassium alum, and this is pretty much nature's aftershave balm. It's a crystal, and it goes back thousands of years. And you wet it and rub it on after you shave, and it seals up any micro cuts or whatnot. It's an antiseptic as well. I mean, and you've probably seen them. And for those of you who hang out in health food stores, like I do, you've probably seen the deodorant called the Crystal. It's the same stuff. Mm-hmm. So you can also use it as a natural deodorant too. It's a natural antiperspirant, but it has 1,000,001 uses, and I think it's very valuable in your shave kit. And in fact, the Pope back in, I think, 1462, somewhere around there, had a monopoly on potassium alum because it's also used for water filtration too. Yes, it goes way back. The Egyptians were using it for water filtration. We still do it for pickling. But yeah, it makes a great addition to your everyday shave. And what I invented was this little dry dock to store it on. Since it's a crystal, people have a tendency to put them away in these travel containers, is what they call them. It's what they're shipped in. And when you put it away wet, it just starts to dissolve and whatnot, and it's not good for the alum block. It really cuts the life of it in half. So I invented this sponge type thing that it's a nest more than a sponge that holds it delicately, so it can so there's a lot of air circulation around it, and it'll dry fast and save it. And so that's what this is all about.
Cool. And
but that's what I'm doing.
So people know, if you haven't gotten this already, this isn't a UFO show. Now, UFOs come up quite a bit, and especially from the last show, which was our second show, I can see they will come up often. That just because you and I talk about our personal experiences related to whatever our topics are, and you are, of course, come from the shaving world. You have the shaving company. I essentially run a UFO company. So, of course, we're going to talk about the industries that we're in. So UFOs will come up, but it's not strictly a UFO show per se. So if you're looking for OpenMinds.tv UFO info, this is more of a fun show to talk about other different topics.
Yeah, this is where we wind down.
Yeah, wind down. And also, answer questions from the chat and just kind of have fun with our community here.
Yes. In fact, I'm glad you brought that up because we're interested in what you guys have too for stories as well. If there's something that correlates with what we're talking about, we'd love to hear your story or your take on it. So yeah, this is less UFOs, more paranormal leaning than UFOs. And I think paranormal is a good place to like diffuse, just to cool down in between UFO information. Maybe, I don't know.
No, yeah. In fact, let me share what I've been doing this week, and you're going to find this interesting because there's really this huge debate going on. So I got this great interview with Chris Mellon. And Chris Mellon used to be like the Assistant Defense Secretary of Defense National. Let me get his titles. I always screw it. I'd never say it right without direction. It's kind of like Leslie Kane's book. She wrote this UFO book, and I always get it wrong when I don't look at the title. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Intelligence. He also worked in the United States Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, which is the SSCI. That's important, especially this week, because recently news came out that the SSCI is requesting that military, see, look how serious I get, that military intelligence agencies share their UAP information. In fact, it implies that these intelligence agencies have been doing UFO. UAP is just kind of a more palatable term for UFOs in mainstream arenas, but they imply that the intelligence agencies have been collecting UFO info, and we've seen this with the Navy essentially admitting that, and the Pentagon. And you're exactly right, independently. In fact, that's what this is saying, is kind of saying, one, we need you guys to coordinate. We need one place that is collecting this information and to share information publicly. And that, essentially you guys are all collecting all of this stuff on your own. It's all stovepiped. We need this all coalesced. So all of these issues are what we talked to Chris Mellon about. So, and I'm the only one I know of that's gotten an interview with Chris Mellon besides Politico, Brian Bender, who I interviewed last week. So it was great. Some really incredible insight that we got, but I keep getting beat up, and there are alleged documents out there. And I don't know, I'm an old schooler in this field. There's always alleged documents that have kind of dubious backgrounds or that cannot be substantiated fully.
Right.
And I personally just don't want to waste my time on that sort of thing. At least that I'm sharing. If I don't have anything to substantiate it, I'm going to talk about what I can substantiate. And this news that we have is groundbreaking because, my God, the Senate talking about UFOs. So it's important stuff. So that's why I'm focused on that right now. And I'm taking a lot of heat from people. Why aren't you paying attention to this or that? And so, what can I do?
I mean, I guess maybe they have downtime and they're like just trying to catch up with stuff now. Like, you want to tackle that UFO thing? Okay, let's do it. And I don't know, but yeah, independent of each other is totally. I mean, you see that all the time across all these different agencies in regards to everything. So it does not shock me that they've been doing this independently of each other for a long time. And it's going to be a challenge to see them ever to work with each other because I mean, even our other agencies have trouble working together. I don't know why. We're all on the same team here, but it's like this competition, this thing. I don't know what it is.
I talked to John Alexander and he kind of told me why, because they're all fighting for the same budget is a lot of it. So
actually I was there, I think when you talked about, didn't we talk around the fire about this?
No.
Oh, sounds familiar though. I know that conversation.
Well, essentially, it was that because he's talked about similar things in the past that you were at. I think the MUFON meeting.
Oh yeah, maybe that's what it was.
In Phoenix.
Yeah, it was MUFON. It was MUFON.
So that was the fire because he talked about similar things, but in this particular, he's talking about essentially they're all grabbing for the same budget. So they hoard information because information is key in order to say, hey, I've got more information on this, so I should be the one that you give the money to do this project. So that's kind of the other thing that they're vying for in the background. But remember, after 9/11, the DNI position, the Director of National Intelligence, was created in order to help coordinate intelligence, and there has been some success there. So there is a precedence for this. So hopefully it will produce something. And Chris Mellon, one thing that for those conspiratorial minded would appreciate, he confirmed that when they let the Senate know about some of these great UFO cases like that you see on the TV show Unidentified, which is launching again on July 11th for their second season. But that when the Senate saw that stuff, they were concerned that they were in the dark. They were concerned that, hey, Navy, Pentagon, now you're admitting that you've been looking into this stuff. Why haven't you been sharing that with us? Which is exactly what Luis Elizondo, who ran a Pentagon program, wanted to do. He wanted to share it up the ladder, but he wasn't allowed to. And now by leaving and going public, he's now allowed to.
It took 3 years, though, for them to notice. I mean, this is old information at this point.
Yeah, it took 3 years. But the good thing is more information will come out. But you know what? They thought it would take longer than 3 years. In fact, I get to talk with Luis quite a bit. In fact, I was just hanging out with him yesterday, and he was talking about 3 years is awesome. They were expecting it to take 5 years because this is what is occurring is what their goal has been. So amazing stuff. So that's what I've been up to this week. So do check out my interview with Chris Mellon, and I'll actually have it posted here for subscribers on YouTube in just the next couple hours.
Very cool. Very cool.
So the topic for today, tell us about it.
Well, I'm not actually reading this book currently, but it's a classic when it comes to the paranormal.
I hope you have read it, or you know what it's
about.
I
have. Oh, hell yeah. Okay, it's good. A classic. It's Cheiro's Book of Numbers.
Oh, I thought it was Cheerios.
Yeah, that is pronounced like that, like Cheiro's, but it's pronounced Cheiro. Okay. And not his real name, actually. But this book, I picked this book up probably in like 2005, 2004 in Woodstock, New York at this I guess it was like a magic store. It was below this other store, and anyone from Woodstock, New York, or who visited there probably knows what I'm talking about. There's this huge Tibetan Buddhism store. And below that, if I'm remembering correctly, was this magic store too, where they also sold incense and similar products. And this was on the shelf with a bunch of, a range of other books. And I collect first edition books, so I had to check this out. But what really caught me with this was the scent of it. I'm pretty sure this is the book. Yeah, it was right above on a shelf where they burned incense. So these dry yellow pages absorbed all the incense. So like I picked it up and immediately it just smelled magical. And I was like, what is this? And, upon opening it, I saw that it was signed by the author too.
Whoa.
Back in 1934. And he died 2 years after the fact. So
holy moly.
Yeah, so a really cool classic occult book on numerology, pretty much. It's the Book of Numbers, and it's his complete revised edition. It's pretty much a classic when it comes to numerology in that field. I mean, he really
interesting. Cheiro. Yeah. And by the way, I should say Adastra, he made a comment regarding, he says, I never used deodorant until someone introduced me to the crystal stuff. Game changer. Even my wife uses that now.
Yes.
Interesting. And that was probably on the shelf next to the book that you found.
It probably was, actually. Well, right above it in the Tibetan store was all types of Ayurvedic products too. So I would go up there and get skincare products or whatever that were Ayurvedic, which is another story for another time. But
somebody says go on Pawn Stars and see how much it's worth.
The trouble with Pawn Stars or any antiques if you're an antique collector like I am and whatnot, the prices have dropped considerably thanks to the explosion of the internet. Because now everyone's connected and everyone's got this, that, and the other thing. I have an Edison player from 19 1905 that's been handed down in my family for years, and it was worth more in the 80s than it is now because we have access to so many more of these antiques.
Right.
So you look up stuff, look up anything you collected when you were younger, and you'll be thoroughly disappointed. But it's more, this is more about preserving history than trying to make a buck off of it. And I think it's it's a fascinating look into that window.
Yeah, tell us about it. What really know a whole lot about numerology? So how does he describe it? What is some of the weird stuff, the mechanisms that he claims to be behind it, that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, I guess we should probably learn a little bit about Cheiro. Cheiro himself was born in Dublin as William John Warner. He took a pen name, maybe to sex it up his craft a little. But actually, no. In numerology, letters contain numerical value also. So if your name's not working for you numerically, you probably want to change it. So I'm sure that was behind it. But also the root of that name comes from chiromancy. So it's a little bit of both, I think. It worked out numerically for him that it was going to be a powerful name, and as well as the duality of it coming from chiromancy, which is palm reading. He started as a palm reader. Like he really was into the craft since a very young age. I guess his mother got him into it to keep him busy, and it took off. And he really got into palms, wrote a few books on it, and he kind of became a superstar or a palm reader to the stars of the time. He was so well known at this and so accurate in his readings, supposedly. Even Mark Twain, who is the skeptic of all times, was like, I don't want to like what you did, but you did something happened here. And actually, Mark Twain took that. I'm trying to think. There was one short story he used what he learned from this event in. So, he would always take stuff from, yeah.
So back then, a lot of occult topics in the early 1900s were taken much more seriously. You had Madame Blavatsky.
Spiritualism, and Theosophy.
Spiritualism. Even Edison and Tesla were into, I've got a great story how they're competing to make a ghost phone.
Spirit box, right?
Yeah. Well, kind of essentially using the technology, the new telephone technology.
Had the big horn.
Ghost. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they both.
And Edison almost got into trouble. Yeah, they did. But Edison's PR people at the time didn't want that to get out, so they kept it on the hush.
Right.
And so I don't think we found out about that until later, long after his death, that was going on. Same thing with a couple other creepy inventions of his. You ever see his talking doll? Super creepy. Yeah, look that up. His talking doll, because dolls back then were even more creepier. Yeah, and this one would talk, and it's just the recording quality back then was so low that it was just super creepy.
I'm pretty skeptical about a lot of paranormal stuff, but if you were to tell me, well, not as skeptical as an average person, maybe actually, but fairly. But if you were to tell me that ghosts were demonic or more apt to be demonic or evil in some way, I think I'd believe you. They're creepy.
Yeah, I have a problem wrapping my mind around the whole concept of ghosts, because I feel like if ghosts existed, they'd be naked. Otherwise, clothes have ghosts too.
That's a good point. And someone actually, the SSE, there's an organization. Have you looked at the SSE much, Doug? If not, you really have to.
No.
It's the Society for Scientific Exploration. And of course, me being Mr.
SSE. I thought you were saying SST. Okay.
Oh, and they are a group of scientists. They actually got started early on. Townsend Brown was a guy who helped start it, Peter Sturrock. And it was actually more about UFOs. They wanted somewhere to write scientific papers about fringe scientific topics. And these are scientists. And, normally a scientist submits their paper to a journal. So it gets peer reviewed, and it gets, so people can bash it or at least try to confirm or not confirm the claims. So they created the Society for Scientific Exploration, a journal, and to be a full member, you have to be a scientist. Extremely interesting organization. And they do post a lot of their lectures where it's scientists talking about these kind of paranormal topics. These days, they're really into consciousness. So they talk about that sort of thing. But I noticed there was some talk in there or journal article about why do ghosts have clothes?
I always thought it'd be a great band name, Ghosts of Clothes. just to just to create an awareness around this concern of mine that I don't know.
Yeah.
He was dressed up like a Civil War guy, the gun. And it's like that tells me that clothes of ghosts as well. And I don't know.
Could they trick us? Could they wear clothes of a different era?
Well, I've heard people say, well, it's just their clothes resonating. And I've heard it all in defense of these things, but it's like, people, talking about this historicity of the Bible or something like that too, so it's, everyone's got their arguments. But anyway,
taking you off the topic of numerology.
Numerology. Okay. So in a nutshell, and, honestly, it sounds older than what it actually is, but it really doesn't. The word numerology doesn't come into our vernacular until about 1907. And it's any belief in the divine or mystical relationship between a number of one and more coinciding events. It's also the study of the numerical value of letters in words, names, and ideas. And there's a few variations on this. Pelagius had his own thing going on. But then there's also the Chaldean. And the Chaldean form of numerology is more of what Cheiro was trying to do here. And supposedly he went to India to study all that he could on the subject of numerology, palmistry, so on, and the occult in general. And when he felt like he gained enough knowledge, they always do this, right? Then he comes back and brings it with him. Now, he was born in 1866, so he was up around that time as Theosophy was kicking off too. I actually think Theosophy is older. I think that began in the mid-1870s, I believe. So he was around 10 years old then. So that influence is there. But I mean, I see that someone's commenting about Dr. Dean Radin's book. I actually was talking to you about Dr. Dean Radin's book, Real Magic, when we were on that cruise. That was I've read that book. He's really good. He's a parapsychologist. And he's been on Coast to Coast as well a few times. Really well spoken, really quick. Great book. That book will leave you believing.
Yeah.
Really. So if you talk to John Alexander, then read that book and you're like, there's something to be said about this.
What? So you have read this book several times. So obviously it's had an impact on you. So has this book convinced you there's something to numerology?
It's like any other type of astrology, really. You can find something in it that'll tell you, and something in it will resonate with you. And I haven't read it several times. I've read it one time about 10 years ago. But I mean, the gist of it is let me explain to you the basics of it. So let's take what's your birthday?
July 17th, 1973.
Okay, so we're looking at the birthday. The birthday is the 17th. That's what that's what's most important in his form of numerology. So it's the 17th. So what you would do is add the 1 and the 7, bring it down to 8. Oh my God, it's 8. So
that means I have 8 minutes to live.
You have 8 minutes to live. No, well, 8's extremely. Oh, actually, you know what it is? 8 is an extreme number. It's either extremely lucky or extremely not lucky. So, yeah. So that number. He'd also look at the number of the day you. The month you were born. So what was it? January.
July.
The
very month we're in.
Oh my God. So he would look at the number of that month as well, and then he would look at the date, the year you were born, add them all up, and he wouldn't combine all these numbers together, but he'd use them parallel to get a feel or a reading on this person. And so it's all about getting all your numbers in harmony with each other, and that's why some people like him will change their name because the numerical value is pretty key as well. And he based that on the Hebrew alphabet as opposed to our alphabet, which I think has 22 characters in it, where ours obviously is 26. But so he gave each letter in our alphabet a value based on the Hebrew alphabet. And so again, you would take all those numbers, add them up, distill it down to a single digit, and he would have information on what that number meant and how to change it up if you need to. Like if your name is Robert, you might want to add another B to that to make it balance out more harmoniously with your birthday, the day you were born, so on and so forth. And when you line up, or when you're traveling too, like what's the best day to travel? And that I find is actually very close to the 9-star key, which is an Asian number, numerology that I looked into years back at the Kushi Institute, the Macrobiotic Institute back in Massachusetts. I dug around in that for a little bit because where I was working in the kitchen, everyone was into it. They were all Japanese or of Asian descent, and they were all into the 9-star key. They would travel on certain days and so on and so forth. And so there seems to be this relation between the two. So maybe he was actually in India studying this stuff, because at that time, if you wanted your palm read or tarot or any of that stuff done, you had to go to the gypsies. No one was doing it. It was not pop culture yet. So it's people like him or the Theosophy Society that were making this popular now. But they always had this cool, like, mystical background where they were in India, or some holy figures in India are communicating with them telepathically and so on. He's a little more, he's less whimsical in his origin story, but it's still, there's a little bit of that element there where years later, after.
You are too, though, kind of.
Yeah, I guess so. There's that. But he was going to school to become a minister, I believe. And right before he graduated, his father lost his job. So he had to change. He had to start doing something differently. And that very day, he was, and I'm pretty sure this is the case, it was that same day, he was taking a train somewhere. And in the train car, it was just him and another passenger. And there was a book on the seat. And he asked the other passenger, "Is this your book?" And the other passenger answered angrily, a little defensively, like, "No." And it was a book on palm reading. And so that's what led him down that path. After his childhood growing up into that, suddenly he's got this book now that literally fell into his lap. So that's his origin story. And then, of course, he goes off to India and so on and so forth. But it's a very interesting system. And a lot of, like, the new numerology systems are based off of Cheiro's research and his books. And he wrote a couple books back then, too. Language of the Hand. Again, really huge when it came to the palm reading world. Any questions?
I've been doing so many face palms looking at social media these days that you could probably read my palm from my forehead.
Yeah, I know.
But anyway, first of all, a couple questions for anybody watching. If you have experience with numerology, I'd love to hear it. Also, here's the other question, and you can answer this, Doug, if you have any input here. Supposedly, numerology is really big with millennials. You're a millennial, let us know in the chat if that rings true to you. I haven't witnessed that, being the stepfather to a couple millennials. What's that saying?
So this is the book. If you're looking for it, this is book of Numbers is what you want to look at. It's a classic if you're a millennial and you're into this stuff.
But otherwise, a couple people have questions for you. Here's Katerina. She has calculated hers, and she wants to know if you can interpret. It looks like the end result is 7.
7 is good. You probably could have guessed that one, though. I mean, if it's coming out of the. Hey, by the way, hey Shane, congrats on the book.
Oh yeah, buddy Shane. We just had a Open Minds TV. We hosted the Arizona MUFON. Meetings online, and Shane was our first speaker. Great job. He's got a new book out, so you guys can check that out on this channel. By the way, do please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. But here's another. Well, I'll let you look that one up.
I'm probably not going to find it just because there's so many charts in here but it is, that number will be related to a planet as well. He's assigned them all different planets. And so it's pretty much like your address where you live too. Like you want to add up the address of where you live. If it equals like 8, no. Or a license plate for your car. If you're looking at a new car and you're buying it off a private seller, add up the numbers on that plate. See if it, works with your birthday number or any other numbers associated with you, your name, your birthday. And they want to be harmonious with each other. And some of these numbers work with each other and some don't. Like a number 8 Shane, and a number 4 should not be going on a date together.
Oh, really?
Soon. Yeah.
Brian Collins book about your book, it looks like, Shane. That's cool. I hope you enjoy it. So here's another one.
But I'll get back to you. I'll put it in the comments on YouTube when I get back to you, whoever answered.
So what you're describing kind of sounds like how you calculate your porn name, but before the porn name thing was a thing.
Pretty much, yeah. Or in bed at the fortune cookie when you're done eating the fortune cookie,
and you add in bed.
In bed, yeah.
So here's another one. At Astra, who has a lot of great comments, and it seems like he knows something about this topic as well, is asking if you've ran across Marco Rodin's work. Marco
Rodin.
You will in a second. Looks like you're Googling it. He also says that he's not into numerology, but he is into Pythagorean numbers, which are based around the lazy 9. That sounds like a poker thing.
Yeah, that's Crazy Eights. Yeah, I don't know him. I'm not sure I do know him anyway.
Hi, James.
He doesn't even look familiar to me, but I will definitely look him up. Ancient Mysteries. Yeah, it looks like he comes out of that whole. There was a whole school of physics back in the late 70s, I believe, where they're trying to combine physics with the Tao, and it looks like that metaphysical and numerological. I'll check them out. Thank you.
Do you think numerology is related to divination?
Oh, it is.
Is it in the same family?
It's a form of it. That's why the Christian church never adopted it. Like this was going on back then. I mean, you have these Greek philosophers doing it. This was very popular at the same time that the Bible's being put together, or stories of the Bible or whatnot. So I mean, and in actually the Council of Nicaea, not only are they voting on what the creed is for the Christian Bible to come, but they're also talking about should we add numerology to the text as well, or not, or the same discussion. This is happening at the same table where they're putting together the Bible to a certain extent. They weren't putting books together there. What books they were talking about what the creed was. But so it does cross paths.
Another comment, and I'm not sure if you or Cheiro had anything to say about this, but Brian Collins says a lot of Chinese restaurants have paintings on their wall, flying fish in it. That could be a part of some sort of numerology, huh?
Yeah, it definitely is. Oh, hell yeah. I mean, the Chinese, everything has to do with a number there. So yeah, travel and whatnot, lucky numbers versus unlucky numbers. They're a very, very, very superstitious culture, We are too, but and that said, we recognize it probably in other cultures more as what it really is in our own culture too. I've always thought it was interesting that the number 13 in our culture is bad luck, but in India, it's good luck. So how much does culture or socialization have to do with controlling luck,
Are you afraid of the number 13?
No, I'm not really afraid of numbers.
What are you afraid of?
Non-natural fibers.
Non-natural fibers? Is that your biggest fear? Is that what keeps you up at night?
That's what keeps me. Yeah, that and words like ointment. I hate that word.
It's a freaky word.
It's a tough word.
And it's a word that you probably come across a lot in your industry.
Oh yeah. I'll never use it until just now. But I mean, or moist. I hate the word moist too. Ointment, moist. Like
you're not the first one. There's other people
really?
who have a problem with moist. I don't have a problem with. I don't know if there's any words or numbers I have a problem with, but here's Brian Collins says, and I don't know if there's any truth to this. 8 is good, 4 is bad. Those are both numbers I like. So
8 is good. Well, not in this system. In this system, it is.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. 8 is an extreme number. It's a number of extremes. So it's either really good or it's really bad. But more often than not, it's really bad. You've proven otherwise, though, with your birthday.
Yeah, if I'm an 8, then I don't like Cheiro. And I run and go by Katerina because she says Chinese consider 8 very good luck. It is probably why I love Chinese food. I eat a lot of fortune cookies when it means good fortune. So...
No, that's true. Okay, so and that's exactly what I mean from culture to culture. I mean, even the number 8 in itself it's the infinity symbol. So I mean, if each number resonates at a certain frequency, then that form, if considered more of a symbol than a number, it's still going to be vibrating at the same frequency, right? I don't know. So
no, I don't know.
But it's
I think you convince a lot of people of that, though.
I think I could too. I mean, what's not to convince? I mean, it's really easy. But then we get into synesthesia too. You ever and maybe you consciously don't, or maybe you do. No, I guess it would be more subconsciously. But do you give letters of the alphabet a sex? In your head, do they have a sex?
No. I mean,
see, for me, they do.
I mean, because I have, I know a little bit of Spanish, and the words, of course, that end in A, like Alejandro, people is the masculine. Sometimes
but
people
your last
call
name
me Alejandra, which is a feminine, but your Rojas is a red feminine multiple.
Pluralized,
so many female red people. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I know. And they do the same thing with problemo. They say, no problemo. No, problemo is not a Spanish word. It's problema. But stupid gringos.
Why do you give letters a sex?
In my mind, yes, I always have. And I didn't think that was a weird thing until someone asked me if I did that. And they were trying, and the reason why they were asking is they were talking about synesthesia. And that's a form, it's a mild form of synesthesia. Yes. But
what is synesthesia?
Synesthesia is when you like mix senses, when you can smell sound, taste colors.
Oh, interesting.
People actually suffer, or not necessarily suffer, but people actually have this. And, and you experience this on when you're altering your, your mind with certain hallucinogenic drugs as well. You'll experience synesthesia. That's a big thing with a lot of these. But this is the thing where it comes to socialization. I remember growing up, however, in kindergarten, there was the letter people. Do you remember the letter people?
Like on
PBS or something. It was something. I was like 4 years old.
I do remember that.
I remember the teacher would bring out, they were creepy, but the teacher would bring out of the closet like a different letter person a week. They were inflatable dolls too. And that would, somehow teach us the alphabet. But what it may have taught me is the sexes of each letter, because it was like Mrs. I for itch. But then again, I don't remember all the letters. I don't remember all, but I'm wondering if that's where it started from, me just relating them to sexes, or if this is actually truly a form of synesthesia happening inside my head.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So regarding the number 8, and I like this too. Astor says, gives an example, the eightfold
369.
path. And then Mathman Sam talks about how Buddhists love 8.
108. I agree. 108.
Well, no, the eightfold path they're talking about.
Oh, the eightfold path. Yep.
Yeah, and sort of thing. And I actually. Oh, look, Astor says 108 on the
108,
circuit.
like 108 beads on the mela.
I actually have taken my Buddhist vows. It's the I call it the philosophy that I most closely resonate, but I see it as more of a philosophy.
It is a philosophy. Especially Zen.
Then someone else is asking if you've heard of Alan Green. Supposedly, according to Mothman Sam, Alan Green was decoding Shakespeare with numerology. So, and then Katerina, a lot of people have some interesting comments. She says Tesla was obsessed with the number 369. I was not aware of that.
I have an actual soap based on, I've been working on soap, the 369 as a theme.
Oh, really?
We have a lot of
Tesla.
Because of Tesla. Yeah, we have a lot of themes, if you're just tuning in for the first time today, in our soaps and our labels, like this ongoing saga and story. And there's all types of stuff, anagrams, paranormal, hidden inside these labels. And 369 is a big one.
I can interpret this, and maybe you can. It's also a perfect A if 12 TET is corrected to 432 hertz.
It's also a perfect A if 12. I remember something like that.
Really? This makes sense to you?
Well, in a documentary or something I read on Tesla, that's what it was all coming down. Well, Tesla's he thought he was he wasn't sure. He thought he was communicating with extraterrestrials at one point. Do you remember that?
Oh, I just recently wrote an article about it. And it's one of the few articles out there, I think, that totally goes over this whole thing. And I did it.
I wonder where I got it from.
I did it in relation to this movie that just came out about these kids who get a radio frequency. I can't remember the name, but it's a new movie on Amazon. It's really good. I recommend people check it out.
But he doesn't know the name of it.
I know. I can't remember the name. But anyway, that Tesla and Marconi, the two people who are, allegedly, I say allegedly because there's this battle on who really invented the radio. Or radio signals. And really, it's not that easy, because if you get into radio signals, there's lots of different types of signals, different ways to capture different types of signals. And they're kind of working on, thank you, Shane, The Vast of Night. It's a great movie. Got to watch it. Amazon, Vast of Night. But anyway, Marconi and Tesla both thought that among the original radio signals they captured were Martian signals. They were capturing, and actually Edison and Einstein commented on this. I found them where at the time the media people had said, "Hey, what do you think of, Marconi saying this or Tesla saying that?" And Einstein said that regarding Marconi, that he's probably right. There's probably Martians and he's probably right. And then Einstein said, well, there's got to be other intelligent civilizations out there. There have to be, but I doubt they'd use radio. I think they would use laser lights, which is kind of interesting. But it turns out what we didn't know back then is that, a lot of cosmic
spookyons,
a lot of cosmic things out there, black holes and pulsars all emit radio waves. So that's what they were likely detecting. And in fact, kind of the first radio telescopes. That's what radio telescopes are doing. So, that's more likely what they were capturing. But they were both pretty convinced that they had been speaking to, and people should read that article because the comments that Tesla and Marconi made are really interesting because they're kind of like, Martians must exist, and we observed this on Mars. And so could it be that I'm the first one to receive an extraterrestrial signal from another civilization? Could this be their hello? So they're really interesting.
Yeah, no, that's definitely cool. I've definitely touched upon that in my own digging around. And number 9, interestingly enough, is associated with the planet 9 in Cheiro's numerology. Dun, dun, dun. So there's that. Take from that what you will. And New Eden, that book New Eden that we'll have to cover at some point, they actually make contact with extraterrestrials. It's a very interesting book, the whole concept, but not through radio waves like they thought, like SETI thinks they're going to do and whatnot, but much like how Einstein predicted, with particles. And they call them spookyons because Einstein referred to them as spooky particles or something like that. So they name them spookyons, this new discovery. And that's how they end up communicating with these particles that are connected to everything in the universe. In fact, the aliens they contact, they're so far away, they'll never be able to visit the planet. But they visit the planet, or one of them visits the planet through a robotic body that they build on planet Earth through proxy. It's a long story, and it's a great read. I actually think that someone could take the concept and go even further with it, but it's a great place to start in that kind of thinking, because that, truth be said, that probably is the way rather than radio. Radio is so old school at this point, so it's old tech. If there are aliens out there,
SETI back like in the 60s, the SETI meaning the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, and in particular, a lot of the people we see, Frank Drake, Jill Tarter, Seth Shostak, belong to the SETI Institute, which is an institute, whereas the SETI process itself is a general term for anybody who practices that sort of thing. There is a breakout, this group, this Russian billionaire who's doing this sort of thing independently as well. So there are different SETI groups, whereas SETI Institute is one group. But what you were talking about with Einstein was essentially how he described some of the weird things that we observe in quantum mechanics. He called it spooky. In fact, one of them he called spooky action at a distance, because this is where quantum particles can kind of, you change one here, and we don't know how, somehow even one that far can be affected. And we try to understand that spooky action, which is probably what that book that you're talking about.
It is. They're connected. They're connected, but opposing each other at the same time. So what is it? It's called super form. Someone in the chat has it, I'm sure.
Super duper? No, that's the new missile system we have, according to the president. Like super duper bomb. Mothman is saying.
There you go.
What's that?
It's entanglement. So they're entangled with each other.
Quantum entanglement.
Yes, and so
Jim just got it. Yeah.
Yeah. So they can be connected, though. Galaxies apart from each other, they can still be connected to each other, and so that's how in this book we're able to communicate with these other beings. And it's a really great read, New Eden. We'll cover that in a future episode, and I'll dig into it a little bit more.
Yeah, quantum communication is a
superposition is what I was thinking of.
Oh, okay. Quantum communication is a real thing that
quantum computer.
And yeah, quantum computers. In fact, that's the of a gentleman named Deep Prasad that Karen is going to have speak at the UFO Congress. But yeah, so quantum communication, I don't understand it. Something that is a real thing. But the term quantum has been adopted by the metaphysical community in ways that are typically completely inaccurate. And it's unfortunate.
That goes back to those physicists from the 70s. They were trying to combine like quantum mechanics and quantum thinking with the Tao. And you can see where stuff is similar in the philosophy versus the mathematics, and some just isn't, but they're trying to force it to fit. So I think it's born out of that period in history. I remember those books too, growing up. They were out there. Is that
one of the
There's a little drag.
What were you gonna say?
I don't know.
Well, you interrupted. Now I can't remember what I was gonna say either.
Oh God.
So let's see. Chain Herd kind of described spooky action at a distance. Now describes quantum particle behavior where though separate, both affected by a stimulus. So that is some incredible stuff. There is a scientist out there, a theoretical scientist, Claude Johnson, who talks on this quite a bit. And he talks about how there are subtle forces. And, in some of these multiple universe scenarios or other dimensions, they talk about
multiverse.
All the different forces that were affected by this, such as gravity, which is actually allegedly a weak force in our being or whatever dimension, and that they're different in other dimensions, and that somehow some of these very weak forces are hard for us to detect and are what cause some of these, kind of like you talked about the spooky-ons, but that the existence of them, because they work different than the physics that we understand it, which is why Einstein actually didn't believe in quantum stuff for a long time. He was denying it because he was like, this doesn't work with my theories. So but that he feels that they allow for a lot of the paranormal, such as the possibility of ghosts and
multidimensional
and these sort of things, but that there are essentially subtle forces that we cannot detect, that even perhaps our brain can emit, or that we may be able to manipulate with our minds, that could be the cause of some of these things that happen. Maybe.
Oh yeah, or just our misunderstanding of what we're seeing. I mean, if we're seeing an entity from the fourth dimension or the fifth dimension, and we're using a three-dimensional mind to try to make sense of this, it's impossible. We're not going to. Like, my finger's coming down here. If my hand is in the fourth dimension, you see 4 separate things come into my dimension. So now I've just witnessed 4 separate entities. I don't see the bigger picture that's all part of the same entity, so there's that. But it's funny that we've made it our way here.
Yeah.
It reminds me of what was I reading recently? Oh, the mandala effect. That's kind of like all the rave you've seen in the last 5 years.
It is very popular.
And it was pretty cool when it first came out, like for a hot second, for a minute, like the Berenstain Bears. That was like, whoa.
Like, did you think so?
Real. Well, I remember it as the Berenstain Bears growing up, not the Berenstain Bears or whatever it's spelt as. I remember it very clearly. However, the namesake mandala effect, I do remember mandala being released. I was a paperboy when I was younger, so I remember reading everything when this was going on. And so I have a clear memory of him being released, not dying in prison.
Yeah.
And that's where the name came from. But the one thing that resonated with me was the Bears. But all this other stuff, I've read stuff online, and people just go down this rabbit hole. And the thing is, just because you don't remember something happening to people doesn't mean it didn't happen in our timeline. There's also false memories too. I saw one guy going on about the Energizer Bunny and the Duracell Bunny. He saw online, he found the Duracell Bunny. He's like, but it was only the Energizer Bunny. Da, da, da. No, there wasn't. In Central America and South America, where I was living, there's the Duracell Bunny. In fact, the Duracell Bunny came first in the United States. I think it was during the 60s and 70s.
Really?
And Energizer brought it back in the late 80s as a joke to make fun of that. But they realized that Duracell wasn't paying for the rights anymore, so they bought the rights to the bunny.
Wow.
And then Duracell really scooped it up fast in Central and South America, so they have the rights down there. So this guy, though, seeing this, is thinking that this is the Mandela effect. No, it's just something he was not aware of.
Yeah.
And you see that a lot.
I was really interested in, especially when I was getting my degree in false memories, especially related to witness testimony. And I think we talked about this before maybe, but just how easy it is to be manipulated. So for instance, there was this one trial that they did, this test where they wanted a group of people who had been trained on observation to see if they could fool them. No, and actually this was military, and I think they were law enforcement military though. So they had a day of training. After a day of training, they asked them a bunch of questions where they inserted false memories. So they asked, okay, so that instructor that you had in the third hour of the day, the one, that was teaching you the gun training, what color were his glasses? And most people would have an answer. Well, he wasn't wearing glasses. But that's just an example where they asked a lot of questions like this. And by asking that question, it implanted a false memory because people thought, oh, yeah, his glasses, I think they were black. Oh, yeah, they were like a gray. They were a tortoiseshell. And so these people are remembering a false memory of someone with glasses just by simply asking that question. So
they're leading questions is what they are.
Yeah.
So
it just demonstrates
palm reading
how
too.
easy it is.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, that's neurolinguistic programming operates on that principle, with people. But I remember that same test being done on a Different Strokes episode back in 1982, I believe. With Arnold, where they're sitting in
the science.
What you talking about, Willis? No, with Arnold. And
I met that little guy once.
Did you really? Gary?
Yeah, really nice. Gary Coleman.
Gary Coleman. Yeah, not Newman. That's someone else. But yeah, they did a similar experience. But witness testimony is always, I mean, even for people that are trained in it, like you're talking about, it's still bad. I mean, so.
Yeah, the key is really, and this is what cops do, you got to get the people to write down or document what they saw, when it happened. And after they witness something, you have to separate them from everybody. And you'll see cops do this because anything
I've experienced
anyone else says will manipulate your memories, just like I mentioned. So it will taint your memories by talking to anyone.
Yes. When I'm testing on a product and I send it out to a bunch of different testers, I don't introduce them at all. And I don't say, hey, this guy thinks this guy, I just want to know your opinion. I don't want to, have any control over what you think at all. I want a clean testing area, if you will.
Yeah. So a lot of us here are talking about how the Mandela effect is not something that we buy. So I think that they will agree with me that your Berenstein memory is a false memory. You're wrong about that.
I mean, obviously, but what I'm thinking is it's just growing up in the 80s, it's a foreign word. So maybe my mom was pronouncing it Berenstein Bears.
I think that's what it is. People pronouncing it differently.
Yeah. I really think that's what was going on. And that just burned it in my brain. But I mean, I remember watching the cartoon here and there. I was a little older, but I remember the cartoon on Saturday mornings too. But by that point, it's already burned in my brain as Berenstein Bears,
Yeah.
There was a few things.
Shane Hurd says he bets that Mandela and Berenstein Bears have likely never been uttered in the same sentence in human history.
Until now.
Setting records here. But I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
I have no idea. But yeah, no, it's just gone down that hole where things go.
Well, what's with that phenomena though? Because that happens to us constantly just now. Where as soon as we interrupt each other, we completely forget what we were going to say.
It probably has to do with the same stuff we're talking about, man.
Yeah.
We're just
Thanks, Shane. Quantum
it's a black hole just sucking in all of everything we're talking about.
All of our thoughts.
Yeah.
In another dimension, though, according to some people, because choices create other dimensions, in another dimension, we remembered and went off on these different tangents.
You can't argue with people that believe in the Mandela effect either, because they'll just say, "Oh, well, you're not from my timeline." Like, you can't argue with them. I mean, that's just like, they make it work. It's like arguing some sacred holy books too. Like, there's always an argument out of that. Like, I mean, you're either full on into it or you're not. And I did think it was interesting that when I first heard it, because the Berenstain Bears was really easy for anyone my age to go, see what I mean? See, do you remember that?
Yeah.
But I can't think of any other examples of it that sold me on it. But that was definitely I remember I was listening to a podcast, and it was the first time I'd heard of it, and it really, my ears pricked up. I was like, oh, that is interesting. And I don't often feel that way.
When I heard that one, I was like, well, I don't think I was ever clear on the spelling or pronunciation of that anyway. So
yeah. See, so you have to be associated with it. Otherwise it's just lost on you. But I mean, these people are going to town on YouTube, like trying to find stuff in cartoons and everything. The whole what was it? The Sinbad genie movie. And there's just all types of wacky stuff out there and theories. It's amazing, actually.
Yeah. Someone said the monocle on Monopoly Man is one, but I always remember.
I don't remember that. He didn't have one.
Yeah.
He never had one. No.
Oh, okay.
But they're confusing it for the Peanut guy from Mr. Peanut. Mr. Peanut did. Yeah. See, I don't remember. I grew up playing Monopoly, and I don't remember him ever having a monocle. So that I don't have that memory. But you do. You proved it.
Well, I don't know, though, if I remember. I think he has a pocket watch or something, at least. I just remember some kind of accessory that he has to his outfit.
I think we just proved it, folks. I think we just proved it right here, just by the slight suggestion. Suddenly Alejandro had that memory. False memories.
So I've gotten my cue here that I guess we should wrap up, and it is time. Shane says, Shane says me peanut. I think he misspelled something. But UFO Congress has just commented, let's go to the beach dimension. And that is, of course, the owner of the UFO Congress is my lovely significant other.
Is she in California?
Yeah. Yeah, she's out here. Yeah, she's been out here for the week, and we'll be out here for a little longer. I think someone said Marianne is watching. She's going to come out at the end of the week, which is cool. And then
very cool.
My friend Stacy will be out in a couple of weeks.
Your friend Stacy.
So all my good friends come to visit.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
But
I would
anyway,
love to, actually. I would really love to. I just don't want to get the bid.
Right. Oh, right. I know. It's better to be safe, everybody. Be safe. I'm not advocating not being safe. That's for sure.
You're a horrible leader.
We've had this intense analysis on numerology and the Cheiro book. What, in summary, Doug, have we been able to figure out, do you think, during this conversation? Oh, that's what he looks like.
What we've had to figure out, I don't know what we've actually figured out or concluded, but or what conclusion we've come to, aside from this being a really cool book, and for for the sake of conversation, I think it's good to read and have an understanding of it, because a lot of the numerology you see floating around with the millennials, according to Alejandro, is probably coming from this book, this early book on numerology. And again, numerology is not an ancient. Excuse me. The word is not ancient. Numerology in itself, the practice of it is in different forms and whatnot. But this is probably the more popular one still going around to this day. And that was brought to you by Cheiro, Cheiro. I highly recommend this book if this at all interests you. It's a really easy read, and it's interesting. Whether it works or not, I'll leave that up to you to decide.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah, my biggest takeaway is, and I don't want to come down on numerology pro or con. We didn't really get into that so much, so not swaying your beliefs or anything. But my biggest takeaway is that your story about finding it. I love that sort of thing, these kind of synchronicities and how we come across things that really have an impact on us and why. And certainly, smell is a part of memory. And it for me, if I had that situation you came across, I would have had to have bought the book, and it would be a treasured a book for me relic. Too. The smell and everything, just a great situation. It was waiting to be plucked up by the right person.
And we can convince ourselves of that as well. Synchronicity too is like how much do we have over the control we have over that too, of convincing ourselves of these things as well. Because you see that said a lot. And that's a conversation for another episode.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, we'll have to do a whole episode on synchronicity because that's.
I have another book. I have a few books. I get some Jung too. I'll tear it back into, and we'll tear it apart.
All right. Any ideas for next week's topic, or are we going to have to wait?
I think we might just explore synchronicity. There's a couple, the classics, obviously by Carl Jung, and then there's some new explorations of the idea of synchronicity. But I can't think of the author's name right now. But it came out probably about 2 or 3 years ago. 2 years ago, we'll say.
Messengers. Is that the one you're thinking of?
No,
I interviewed the guy who did that one.
I don't think it's Messengers, but he has a very cool. He doesn't think synchronicity really exists. It's just us convincing ourselves that it does, and which is very easy to do. And I think today's conversation actually touched upon some of those elements that aid in convincing us that these things are mystical, magical, or or maybe they are. Who knows? I mean, but it's so damn interesting, and we're going to dig into it next week, folks. So thanks for tuning in. Yeah. I'm Douglas Smythe from PhoenixShaving.com.
To my right, see the URL down there in the description.
Lower third.
Yeah. But yeah, if you're on Facebook, push the like button wherever they might be to like our page. If you're on YouTube, click the other button and then click the bell button. Any button you see, no matter how you're watching this, just click it.
The button.
Click the button because that'll really help us out somehow, I guess. So thank you all so much. Adios, Doug.
Ciao.
Bye, everybody.
Hetero. Oh, I'm still here. Well, guess who left the keys to the convertible? Alejandro, help. Help. Well, I guess it's my show. Hey, guys, welcome back to Open Minds. I'm Douglas Smythe from PhoenixShaving.com. Oh,
I was
hey.
Push the button. You got to push the right button. Here's the right button.
Ciao, guys.
Adios.